YouTube, how's it going? The GOAT House is back, and we're not even really in the NFC offseason yet, and some big-name quarterbacks have come up in the trade discussions, and we even saw some of those quarterbacks, Stafford and Goff, get traded. Deshaun Watson's name's been thrown out there, and now Kirk Cousins' name has been thrown out there, kind of linked with the San Francisco 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, so I'll break the potential Kirk Cousins trade down, what it could look like, mainly looking at the numbers, contract. Jimmy Garoppolo's name's getting involved. We'll talk about that as well. And then we'll talk about what other teams could be interested. All my thoughts on this, if it actually could happen. We got all NFL coverage. Everything NFL, we got you. Off-season content already on the channel, whether it's free agency, NFL draft, trades like this. We break it down. And then we're covering the Super Bowl, of course, as well. And we're also doing all that on our Twitter. So check out that Twitter link in the description, comments for anything that you need. There, let's take a look at the Twitter. Yeah, there. Just go ahead and click that link, or just go to @GoatHouseNFL and check it out. Constant NFL talk. Would really appreciate you following. And I'll post a poll. I'll pin a link in the comments of the Sided app. What is the most you would trade for Kirk Cousins? I think that's an interesting debate here. Looking at what Stafford went for, how do you compare the two? You can even choose bag of chips. So you vote and then you comment, and the best comment can make their way on their leaderboard if you get likes, and then. What does the leaderboard do? You can win Amazon gift cards. Top 10 every single week wins Amazon gift cards. So pretty cool. Check it out. Good opportunity there. Link in the description, comments for that. Let's talk about the contract for Kirk Cousins. And, 2021, if he's on the Vikings, he gets hit with the $31 million cap hit. Dead cap's at 41, but they're just not going to cut him anyways. But, mainly looking at 2022. First glance, you see the cap hit of $45 million, which is a lot. It's a lot. He's a solid quarterback, but that's a lot of money. But then you look at the dead cap, and dead cap's only $10 million. So what does that usually mean? Usually, keyword, if you cut a guy with that type of contract, you would actually clear $35 million. So you're only missing out on $10 million. So that typically is a pretty decent contract. There's not more dead cap than the cap hit like this year. But then if you look where that arrow is pointing in the fine print, I guess, of the contract, 2022 salary fully guarantees on March 19th of 2021. So the upcoming March 19th. So that's going to turn into guarantees. So, whoever has them, right now the Vikings have them, but it's a 2-year deal. It's a 2-year deal. Pretty big cap hits there. He is a solid quarterback. But just so everyone's aware of the contract details there, let's break more of it down, kind of talking about the 49ers at the same time. Let me slide myself down here. And, the Vikings, if they trade Kirk Cousins, they clear $11 million. So they don't clear that full cap hit this year. But if they trade him, $11 million cleared for the Vikings. That helps a little bit. And obviously they're clear of the next year cap hit, which is $45 million, a lot. The team that trades for Kirk Cousins will be hit with $21 million. A cap hit, of course, in 2021. So pretty big number, but, for a legit starting quarterback, maybe, it's actually pretty decent, so, but it's again, still a big number. That team will be hit with that. In this case, what everyone's talking about, the 49ers, again, we'll get to some other landing spots. Cousins has a $45 million cap hit in 2022. We talked about that already. 49ers clear $23.6 million with Garoppolo cut. And then you see underneath that, same exact thing if he's traded. So with the Cousins kind of linked to the 49ers, Shanahan and the 49ers could be interested because Garoppolo's had the injury, and it feels like Cousins is just a better quarterback. And, just think about what if they had Cousins when they made it to the Super Bowl that year. It had a better shot probably. He's also, familiar with Shanahan's scheme, of course, from the Washington days. And it seems like Cousins is getting better too. The last 2 years, he's kind of picked it up. But yeah, so that's why we're talking Garoppolo now. So if a new quarterback like Cousins were to come in, Garoppolo would be cut or traded, and that either way, it would clear $23.6 million. So that's pretty good to clear that amount of money from cutting a legit quarterback. It's kind of rare. The Vikings lose $14 million with a QB swap trade. So if they get rid of Cousins, bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, they'll actually lose $14 million. The good thing about Garoppolo's contract is you can cut him with, without taking that dead cap, that giant amount of dead cap that most starting quarterbacks have. But swapping, for getting slightly worse at quarterback probably with Garoppolo, you lose $14 million in terms of cap. 49ers clear 2.6 by doing that same deal, bringing in Cousins. So that's ideal for the 49ers, of course. Vikings won't and shouldn't accept a swap deal. So everyone talking about the swap deal, I just don't see them doing that, because then they'll lose $14 million. They set themselves back to be, almost where they're at, and it depends on what they get, of course. And you could say, well, because the Lions got more for taking on Goff, so could it be that situation? No, because the 49ers wouldn't need to do that, because they can just cut him and save that more that they're giving up, that more value they're adding on top of it. It wouldn't make any sense for the 49ers, so that wouldn't be possible to add picks with Garoppolo like Goff. It just wouldn't make any sense. The Vikings, I just don't think they'll accept that swap deal. I can almost guarantee it, and they shouldn't. Vikings likely will only accept first-round value. So this is where this trade gets tricky and why I just don't think it's going to happen. One big reason is because the Vikings will want a first round pick. Niners pick pretty early this year, or just equal value, whether it's a next year first or somehow making it equal. Maybe a load of day 2 picks, maybe 2 day 2 picks, and a couple mid round. Equal value. The Vikings will want that, and that's really not where his value is, but that's where they will value him, because they like him a lot. But mainly, trading away Cousins really sets them back. It really sets them back. So for them to get set back and for it to be worth it, they're gonna need something good, and that's just how it is. And people will complain because, well, that's not his value, but they don't have to trade him, so that's just how it'll work. And the 49ers won't, I don't think, and shouldn't offer a first round value for Kirk Cousins. They got too high of a pick this year. They could trade next year's first. I just think it's too much, because you get it's essentially a 2-year deal with a pretty giant cap hit next year. Could be, again, the Niners got a really good roster. With a guy like Kirk Cousins, they could do some damage. So if they're just, desperate to make that next step, and, maybe they're less confident about Garoppolo, not just because of his play, what everyone's talking about, because the injuries that popped up last year as well. So, and Cousins, knock on wood if you're with me, but has been pretty healthy, of course. So maybe that's the way they're looking at it as well. And who knows? Maybe I don't see them trading this year's first round pick. That would be mind blowing to me. But his value is probably, it's tough to come around, experienced, solid starting quarterbacks. So his value is, again, I wouldn't trade that first, but yeah, maybe a future first wouldn't be. But would the Vikings even do that? The Vikings might get pretty stubborn with this. They like Cousins a lot. Everyone should be able to tell that. But yeah, I don't see them reaching an agreement on the value, I guess, and for the right reasons from both teams, I suppose. So that's why I mainly don't think a deal happens. Again, I don't think Garoppolo would be involved in the deal. He would be mentioned quite a bit, because he would be cut or traded elsewhere, Patriots, somewhere else, I also think, these reports that are coming out, I don't think they're, and they're not necessarily saying this, but I don't think the reports saying, this deal's being discussed. I don't think that at all. I think it's people thinking, well, the 49ers will very much be in the quarterback conversation, looking to add a veteran, and that's a very good educated guess, I think, of what it is, and I agree with that. And then they're kind of putting 2 and 2 together and say, if they really are, look out for Cousins. And I agree with that being a good prediction, good guess, that they could be interested if they're really going in on finding a veteran quarterback like they were Stafford, or could be Watson, who is very unlikely for them to get. Stafford's already gone. So I think it's a really good educated guess, the whole thing. Nobody's saying it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's very interesting. And then we'll take a look at the other landing spots. I mean, we talked about the 49ers. Their cap, their number of cap space, the amount of cap space they have right now going into the season, with the projected $175 million caps space per team, which could be a little higher, is $11.5 million. The reason I put 35.1 is because if they're in the discussion for Kirk Cousins, that means Jimmy Garoppolo will either be cut or traded. They're not going to keep both Kirk Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo. So, and that would boost that 11.5 to 35.1 with whatever they decide to do with Garoppolo. Of course, that move will be made after they get Kirk Cousins, but you can kind of guarantee that move. So while we're discussing Niners, Cousins, Garoppolo out, I thought it was definitely worth it to show that 35.1 million number. But right now they're sitting at 11.5. Again, the cap space number could be, It could be a little higher than we're projecting. So they could have, 5 to 8 more million than that, but it's right where we sit. It's projected around there. The Panthers have been going in on some of these veteran quarterbacks. They were the first team reported to actually make the call about Deshaun Watson. The first teams brought up, mentioned were Jets and Dolphins. Those were kind of those educated guess, reports. The Panthers actually made the call. They showed big time interest. They're already ready to move on from Teddy Bridgewater, and he could actually be on their team still next year, but a backup could be the starter if they can't find anybody. But yeah, they've been interested, and they actually made an offer for Stafford, and it kind of came out that there was rumors that they potentially could have offered their 8th overall pick. So they are, and whether they did or not, that they are very, very interested in adding a veteran quarterback. Kirk Cousins had, not that it has anything to do with it, but he had a good game against the Panthers this year, came back and beat them. So maybe that was a good showing for them. And they get better with a guy like that. And they got so much talent, across the board on the team, young talent, mainly on defense, very good coaching staff. So, if they believe what Matthew Stafford, I think Stafford's got more arm talent than Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is going to stay healthier, of course. Maybe be a little more accurate in a red zone for, to be specific. But Stafford's definitely got more value, you would think, but yeah, you never know. So the Panthers definitely could be interested. The Colts as well, they're still looking for that quarterback. If they like Phillip Rivers, I think they'll really like Kirk Cousins. The bad thing is we talked about the game they got, the Panthers got the scout Kirk Cousins was pretty good. The game the Colts got the scout Kirk Cousins was the worst of his career this year. Kirk Cousins actually had a pretty damn good year, but when he played the Colts, it was a disaster. So maybe that will play a part. But I think it would be, the difference in offensive line. I think you'd be pretty solid on the Colts. They have the cap space, 2-year deal basically left for Kirk Cousins. They have that money. They actually can get better elsewhere with the rest of the money as well. So that would actually make some sense to me. They would have to go out and definitely get better at receiver though, because going from Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson to Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, what it looks like, so far going into this next year. Pretty big difference there. But the Colts can do it. The Broncos, the Vikings assistant GM, who was there forever, George Patton, is now the general manager of the Denver Broncos. We can sit here and make assumptions. Maybe he likes Kirk Cousins. You would think he would, but who knows? They were also very interested in Matthew Stafford, and they kind of had a deal they were talking about, and it sounds odd, but they didn't really want to give up Drew Lock. And that sounds crazy because you want to bring in a quarterback where you're refusing to give up a quarterback that you're going to sit behind this guy. They still like his potential. I don't know if the Vikings would want Drew Lock. I mean, they probably would take him, but yeah, that's the thing though with the Broncos. They're looking for a quarterback. They have the GM familiar with Kirk Cousins from the Vikings, so those are the positives. They're not going to give up their 9th overall pick, in my opinion, I don't think, for Kirk Cousins. So that's another one where the Vikings, they're going to value him pretty higher than most people think, and pretty much everybody thinks. So that's probably why that's unlikely. And the Patriots wanted Stafford, but Stafford didn't want to go play there because Patricia was there. And the Patriots don't want another project quarterback, but they might have to have one. So they want a veteran because they're getting all these opt-outs back, and they're getting better as a team going forward here. They have a bunch of cap space as well, a great coaching staff, and they want to put themselves back in the discussion to win ball games, win a Super Bowl. So that would make sense as well for them to be involved. So I think these are the landing spots. There's other teams that need quarterback. I don't see them going back to Washington. The Vikings wouldn't trade him to the Bears. Teams like that, I just don't think there's other teams would just rather draft a guy, of course, as they should. So these are the teams. I actually think all or most, I think if he became available, these teams, maybe they already did too. Maybe I think these teams would at least pick up the phone. I really do. Because they would become better teams for sure, with a guy like Kirk Cousins. So we'll see if that actually happens. Again, I'm definitely leaning towards this is kind of educated guesses and pretty decent guesses that teams could be interested, predictions. And I'm leaning towards the deal's probably not going to happen because they won't match. They won't be able to agree on the value. And for good reasons from both sides, I think, too. So we'll see if this heats up. We know the Stafford and Goff the ordeal just went hot in, no time. So who knows? It sounds like it's going to be a crazy offseason. It kind of already is, and the Super Bowl hasn't even happened yet. So I'm excited. I'm excited to cover all of it. Instant coverage on Twitter when things happen. And then we got you covered on the channel as well with full off-season content, Super Bowl content, draft. We got you everything. A lot of it on the channel, a lot more to come. So if you can join us for all that, make sure you subscribe and turn notifications on so you don't miss any of it. Follow our Twitter, link in the description comments for anything that you need there. But yeah, appreciate the support. You guys' support's been awesome lately. And thanks for watching this video. That's going to do it. Goodbye.